Hey, everybody, this is the Limbwalkers podcast. We're being recorded live on WJOB radio. So, a Jedcast is a podcast that is recorded live on the radio. So, if you're driving around, you're getting it live here on August 30th, one day before Halloween in 2025. But you may be listening to it 5, 10 years down the road, but none of this stuff changes because it's all about the life philosophy of one Will Galeros. Will, how you doing today?
Doing great, Jim. How are you? How about you?
I'm doing great. Hey, listen, the longtime listeners of the podcast understand what the general theme is, and they're ready for us to get into the next thing, but we have new people all the time. So we have to explain. If you're watching it on YouTube, there's this picture of Will standing on a limb on a tree, and it looks kind of silly. But you also have, people that are just audio, and they're like, well, what is this? I mean, I know Will, or I've heard of the podcast, and here I am. But you got to tell us again what Limbwalkers means.
Jim, Limbwalkers is basically a designation that you have to earn, and it deals with we're all as human beings born in a very controlled situation and atmosphere. And we're very conscious of being secure and never taking risk. And there's an old statement out there that says, if one never ventures out on the limb, one will never taste the fruit. Well, the limb is the limb walker. It's the person who moves away from the tree of life, the security, and does some things to maybe enhance their life. Maybe doesn't enhance it, but it gives them an opportunity to experience things that are maybe a little risky, a little questionable, but it tests their skills as human beings and the growth that they're going through.
So one of the dynamics that you'll notice on this podcast over time is that Will has given a lot of thought and a lot of credence to, this method here. Adriana, can you two-shot us here for a second? Yeah, there you go. We are in the middle of putting a new system in for our audio, so I think she's putting us on the radio right now. But anyways, there was a basic difference when we first started this, in that I consider myself a slacker, and I just like to take the world as it comes in. And then you have a definite program that is based on a lot of motivational talkers and writers and that kind of thing. So if you've noticed a migration from me to looking at a little bit more forethought on where things are headed, that is definitely happening. And the one thing that sticks out is that if it's right here in As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, which you have quoted a zillion times, is that you can kind of draw yourself. If you say, all right, this is where I want to go, this is how I want to do things, I've thought about it, I'm ready to pivot at any time, but I make a little commitment to thinking about doing these things in the world with this very short life that I was given. And to some extent, that has kind of clicked with me in that, all right, you're following what you're thinking at that point. And I'm just hoping that some of my slacker mentality has also rubbed off on you, where I look at the world as like, whatever happens, just come to me and then I'll process it and I'll kick it through. You can't even take that method.
Actually, strangely enough, I can.
Oh, give me a break.
Honestly, I didn't even realize it. But, and I think I shared with you and the audience before that I've been reading these books by an author by the name of Ryan Holiday, who is a current modern day Stoic, like Epictetus and Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, where simply put, you look at things in life and you say, okay, I have no control over that situation that's going on. Doesn't mean I won't take an active role in it, but I'm not going to worry about it and whether or not I can change it. And then there are positions that you're in where you know you can change it, and you take active pursuit to do it, and you don't waste time in between worrying about those things you can't change. I think I actually am probably more in the middle of the road from where you are and where you view me as. And I find it interesting that the people that I know, and you're one of them, who has been extremely successful, does far more. I mean, you're a stoic without you maybe even knowing by the way you act. I mean, the way you look at things, let them slough off, and you don't worry about them, that's somewhat of a stoicism. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but you're somewhat of a stoic. But at the same time, you're a rapid fire. We're actually a lot more alike than you think we are.
I know we are, and that has come out in the podcasts. The one thing that I think of your impression on me is the same thing that I have As a Man Thinketh at home now because I got to prep for the podcast, and now I'm kind of internalizing some of it. But there was one chapter in As a Man Thinketh that really kind of hit me more than any of the other ones, and that is the effect of thought on circumstances. It's basically number 2 in his expose that he wrote years ago. And I have it here, actually. Just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and letting grow the flowers and fruits, a man may tend the garden of his mind, weeding out the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts, and cultivating toward perfecting the flowers and fruits of the right, useful, and pure thoughts. And
Right.
you asked me about the podcast before us, Matt Hansen and Mastering Local Marketing that I do. He almost says the exact same thing. Hansen says this. I go, hey man, what about doing this project or doing that project? And he says, hey, listen, people ask me how I do so much, and he's like, 90% of what comes to me I reject, and I say no, and I just let through the things that are excite me,
Yeah.
and can have an impact. And so he's pruning the garden of all of these other projects and marketing projects that people want him to be in, and he's just going for the ones that excites him.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, on your thoughts, like if I've kind of like it has helped me make a decision on basically rejecting a few business proposals that we were going to do or had. And then I'm like, these aren't really exciting us and they're not that profitable. We need to prune the garden. And it's exactly what, I think about Alan saying this or you saying this. You have to narrow down. And Hansen before us says you have to narrow down to what excites you. And I'm like, God, it's not that hard.
See, that's the key right there, because what comes through to me in all of Alan's writing is that, yes, we can pick those things and weed out those things, but it's the attitude that we do it with. You have a choice every day when you wake up to be happy or sad or mopey or whatever. And the key is that the results of that attitude are going to reward you or penalize you. Whichever one you pick, you're picking a destiny of not so good, maybe good, good, great, because of your attitude towards it. So it's almost twofold. One side is parroting out those areas that make sense and you think can succeed. And number 2, because you've done that, your mental set is such, your attitude is positive rather than negative, to put it simplistically.
That's the part I can't take.
Okay. Explain.
Well, I can't internalize that you have to think positively. To me, it's too much pressure. You know what I mean? Now, I can understand narrowing out and we've expelled a couple things. People are like, man, I never thought all these guys out here and Adriana there, I never thought you'd stop that relationship. We didn't want it. We thought it was slightly toxic, but it had run its course. And And I'm like, well, I think my thinking has gone to that where we need to narrow to where what excites us. We had to think of it as a group. So I can think in those terms, but you start talking to me about positive mental attitude or PMA, and it's just like it's being in junior speech class with Helen Ingstrom trying to tell me these things, right? And we both took her at Munster,
Right.
and I rejected that with her, and we used to have big arguments. And then next thing you know, she's like, "You need to be on the speech and debate team," and here I was, this like athlete. I never thought about it. She made me be on extemporaneous speech, partly because we were arguing about positive mental attitude. And then extemporaneous speech led to me, going to state meets. And next thing you know, I've been doing radio for off and on for 40 years from that initial discussion with her. But I'm like, listen, I don't want to have the pressure to think positively, but I can kind of backdoor it by saying, just go for the things that excite you. And that's what James Allen says. That's what Hanson before us, and that's what you say. And I got to say that I wonder if there are other people that like look at like think, oh, you have to think positively. It's like, get the hell out of here. The world's so ugly right now. Just let me pick the parts I want, and if they're positive or negative, I'm not going to make a judgment. I'm just going to do it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
That's different from what you bring forth.
it does. I mean, I think the key is that you're each person, first of all, responds and is turned on by different things. I mean, to you, and actually to me in another way, I look at a situation and I pair it out. I say, you know what? That old statement, if you do what you love to do, you never work a day in your life, right? Well, you can make the decision of what you want to do. Some people follow a path just because they took a specific course in college and they think they want to be an accountant or they want to be a lawyer or they want to be whatever. And it doesn't really make them happy. It doesn't make them get up in the morning and feel like, wow, I'm going to take on the world. When you find what you love to do, it's a form of, yes, making that determination that puts you in the frame of mind to be successful at what you're doing. You, as an example, you've been in the radio business for 40 years,
Off and on.
off and on, but you love it. You love the freedom of speaking your mind on the air, sitting and interviewing and getting to know people, and you love it. The key, and I think what Alan is saying is, you've got to seek those things, yes, that you love to do, but that give you a solid positive feeling. And if you do, it can be anything that it makes you feel that way. It's better than always seeking out the negative in life and looking at what the potential bad things are that can happen. You weigh those before you get involved in it.
So let's bring it into contemporary times here in the end, near the end of 2025. If you're listening, we do these podcasts. We have a 102-year-old radio station, so we do these so we could play these forever, to be honest. And this is one of the podcasts you may hear 10 years from now. But right here, right now, where we are is, as long as I've been in radio and even as a little kid, and I think you may agree with this, that there's more discord,
Oh,
there is more ugliness, there is more hatred in American politics, driving, sports. I mean, it kind of infiltrates all of our aspects of society. So I think that if you go back to the James Allen way of thinking or your way of thinking or partly mine, is that I think that what you mentioned is that a lot of people are seeking out the negative right now.
oh, I think that's without a question.
And I don't know where that's going to lead, but what is your take on, the discord and people seeking out the negative?
Think about it. If we could take presidential politics out of the mix in the last 12 years, we would not find the level of discourse that exists right now. There have been, unfortunately, presidential elections that were people took sides so vehemently they've become hateful about it because they're different thought patterns. And you have different new political influences entering the arena, the more progressive than the traditional Democrat. And they butt heads. But the thing that's, to me, that's bad is the fact that nobody talks to anybody. And I think that was driven by the hate that came with presidential election more so than representatives and senators and local politics. I think it because those have always existed where you bump heads, but you talk to one another, you're close to one another. And now we don't have that. I mean, we have people they just hate because they hate Trump or hate because Biden is something that they don't like. And I don't know what's going to change that. I mean,
Either do I, but let's go back here. I mean, I literally don't. I mean, for people that are listening outside of the audience, um, I got a 102-year-old radio station. Will's been part of it since Colby years,
oh
so
yeah,
decades off and on. And I learned from Julian Colby that do not change what we do ever. And that was, people are like, man, how are you able to exist in this hate filled environment when most radio stations are selling out to conglomerates? And I'm like, no, we're just doing what Colby taught me. And he said, don't ever change it. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world. So basically, what we do is out of favor right now. WJOB and AM and FM and online and all of our podcasts and all of our new hosts like Adriana, who's producing this right now. It's like, all right, everybody has a point. Everybody has something to say, and let's respect it and let's put it on the air. And that is not the way that the world works right now. Okay.
yeah.
And so we're going against the grain, and I've been going at it pretty hard for, I don't know, I would say it's been the better part of a decade that I've been fighting the discord, because in how this tradition filled talk is supposed to work is that people come together and respect each other's opinions and maybe just learn a little bit. When you're that far apart,
Yeah.
all I feel is people are calling in the morning and giving Fox talking points and then MSNBC talking points, and there's none of that regular back and forth, and I agree with you here but I disagree with you there. I think we're going to come back to it, so we just continue what we're doing, and I'm not going to change it. We hired a consultant. They said, hey, you got if you picked a side right now, you'd make a ton of money. I go, I don't want to pick a side. We're doing what we do, and people will come back to what we've always done and what Colby taught me. So to bring it back to thought and character, I have specifically set that thought that we have to carry on this tradition of
Amen.
respectful, antagonistic discourse at times, but it allows everybody to have their say. And I don't care if that doesn't fit with the current environment. So we've been able to do that and let it follow. I get the feeling that it's kind of, in some areas, is coming back to where we are. But it all started with the idea that the thought had to be first, and then the circumstances would follow. Does that make? I mean, it
Yeah.
does make sense to you,
Yeah.
but that's what I want to bring out to the listeners. There is an example of circumstance following thought. I specifically said when all this discord started coming up and you started to see it bubbling, I said, okay, we're gonna do what we've always done. If we could just come back to that always, that we're gonna make it through this current situation. The circumstances have followed. We've made it through. We've thrived at times, but it starts with that thought. Do you have an example in your life of circumstance following thought?
Sure. I mean, as an example, always in every field, especially with technology growing the way it has, we would have presented to us in the insurance industry some new technology or sales method or whatever. And everybody's jumping up and down and saying, oh my God, I'm going to go do that. And they do it without fail immediately. They just go right to it. I don't operate that way. I take a great idea or what seems like a great idea, and I internalize it. I did not ever sell a product that was based on something that was hot in the market at that point. I wanted that thing to prove itself out. Once it proved itself out, then I would attack it and use it aggressively to educate people, and I knew it worked. What I didn't want to do was have an idea I took to people that was weak, and then it failed, and then I began to lose customers because I chose the wrong direction.
I just did that, by the way. I won't tell you what it is, but I let something go. I was like, I'm going to try it, and I rolled it out to some really good customers, and I feel bad about it. But
Well,
that's
that's
an
good. That's
example.
a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I'm like, God, this was wrong. And honestly, once you realize that, you just got to cut the cord and take
Yep.
your losses. But so, in terms of what you're talking about, you went with a thought and you went into it and said, all right, listen, I have this idea, kind of a strategy. This may be good or bad, this new technology, this new product. And they do come up in insurance. I get
Oh,
them
yeah.
sold to me all the time. Um, and then you implemented that every time a new technology or a new product came about. So you had a method, but it was a method that you thought of, and then the circumstances followed. You see, that is much easier for me to understand than you telling me I got to follow the Limbwalkers creed and I got to think
No,
positively.
no. First of all, Limbwalker's creed is a personal creed. It is, I wrote that down because it is the areas that I noticed in my life that helped me succeed at what I did, no matter what it was. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody to have a different creed of your own that makes you feel that way. The other thing in regards to thought and action is that one of the things I do, and we've shared this too many times, but in the morning, my routine from the time I get up until I leave, walk out and leave to go to work or whatever I'm doing for that day, I read extensively on things that are some motivational, some uh, religious, some just general stuff, but most of it is all positive feed. So when I leave the house every day, there is seldom a day that I haven't taken the thought that I've taken in and don't walk out the door ready to take the world on with no problems.
I can't get there. And if you reject that at some level as too much pressure, don't worry. I do too. I don't put
Hey,
that
it's
pressure on
different
myself.
on
I don't
everybody.
put my pressure that kind of pressure on myself to make sure that I'm in a positive mental state. I put pressure on myself. I learned it at the Board of Trade for 20 years. You had at 7:20 when that bell rang, you just had to be ready. You couldn't be tired. You couldn't be hungover. You couldn't have like just had a fight with your wife. You couldn't have. You have to. The focus has to be right there. You're going to lose all your money, which I did twice, and that'll be part of this podcast at some point if you ever want it to be. I could tell you what complete failure is all about, but to apply it to the current circumstances. If you are sitting there and you're like, say you're a little bit bored, or you don't want to take responsibility for having your next thoughts and your next whatever a couple hours. A lot of times people will plug into their side of the hate.
Sure.
Let's just be straight. If you're Donald Trump person, you go into your side. If you go in and you're one Mamdani out of New York and AOC, and you can go into that, and you can stay there, and they will carry you along.
Yep.
They will reinforce what is already your political opinions, and it'll get negative at times, say on both sides. And it's very easy to do that. And I see people doing it all the time that used to be people I could have a discussion with, and now it's all my side's talking points. I don't begrudge you your political opinion at all, and I want to respect it. But I would just like to maybe point out that circumstance follows thought. And if you're going to sit there at 7 o'clock at night and you can't find anything else to do with your life but plug in to your river of maelstrom, then you're circumstance is going to follow that. That is your thought. I want to go with this side, and I want to plug into it, and I want to listen to it. I want on my social media feed, and then you're going to get caught in it, and your circumstance is going to follow that. Now, it might be a good circumstance. You might find a job in that field, or you might have a boss that agrees with you, and you have a common platform to talk about. But to me, it starts with the thought now. If you have chosen to go into that side, then let's look at what that has done to your circumstances of your life. Almost a sociological experiment.
Okay.
And that's what I went to school for, was sociology. This is the one thing that resonates with me. Circumstance follows thought. Don't talk to me about PMA. Don't talk to me about just Kuziak will come on here sometimes. We're just going to talk about good things. I go, no, that's not the world. We talk about the world as it is, and, that we'll see what follows. That's a thought. Talk about the world as it is, respect what's going on, and understand what's going on, and then let it unfold, and the circumstance will follow.
That's good. I mean, for me, I would rather not get involved in the thought at all on either side. I mean, I know it's stilted on the way it's delivered by both sides, so why do I want to clutter my mind with those thoughts?
You are taking. Go ahead.
I find myself. I will turn my thoughts to something else. Yes, I will pan between those different stations just to see, but I don't. I listen with an open mind to both sides, and I remember that thing I saw the other day that I decided I was going to use if there were political talk that came up with friends or family or whatever, and that is if it opens and somebody's just getting vehement about something, I'm just going to do what Scarlett O'Hara did and just say, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn.
Look at our producer over there.
Did you X me out at that point?
She's doing her homework, and she actually laughed out loud.
Maybe she's
I
laughing.
love that quote from Gone with the Wind. That's one of our favorite movies in my household, and
Well, it's true.
I remember watching that movie for the first time, and he said that. I was just like, oh my goodness! And then going throughout my life, and I hear that quote all the time. I'm just like, okay, there we go.
Hey, by the way, you're going to be proud. Today, our 21-year-old fill-in host for me in the morning interviewed a congressman today.
Cool.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It was very exciting, and definitely some good knowledge came from that from either side, whichever way people like to see it. But I looked at it as that doing that interview, not only is that a great experience for me, but then also kind of shows that those who are in Congress and everything, that they come to the region to do all these different interviews, and talking with me shows younger audiences that they're willing to talk with us.
Yeah.
So I really like that a lot.
Well, he's a good man, Frank. Was it Frank?
It was Frank.
Yes.
But what has happened is, like, some of the people in our bracket, they reject her.
Our bracket, you're talking about age bracket?
They reject her, and you're feeling that, right?
Oh, yeah. But I expect it. That's something I already know to expect. But who knows? Maybe
Do they show her face on air?
Yeah.
You can right now, I think, if she would point the one.
can't.
No, wait, she can't right now.
Well,
we got this.
I have it set up.
Well,
so-
maybe what you need to do is one day wear a mask that makes you an older woman.
There you go. Maybe they'll listen then.
And then maybe somebody will not take it out on you for being young.
So let's talk about circumstance following thought.
Okay.
And because you handed me this, and I'm like, I don't care about any of this positive mental attitude and all that. All I care is about circumstance following thought. Okay? And here's the thought, Adriana, for you too, is that we have our function here is to bring young people in, pay them dearthily, work them crazily, and then they go off. What do we lost 3 people to the Big Ten Network, 1 to Barstool Sports. We've got a woman that's doing national weather, 2, and we've got, I don't know, we probably have 24 people in the field making a ton of money. Okay, so that's our idea. But as my audience ages, they don't want to hear from the young people as much, and there is a big divide between young and old right now. So when I bring someone on that's younger and giving their opinions, like Adriana or Joe Semino or something like that, the older crowd just can't accept it. Can't accept that they have an opinion and reject them as not knowing how the world works, when in reality, it might be that they're giving us a fresh perspective on how we've kind of screwed things up. And people don't want to hear that. But my whole idea of thought following or circumstance following thought is that put young people in the positions of leadership and to be on the air and that kind of thing. And we will have them get better and have the ability to lead discussion and continue on the tradition that had been going on for 102 years. When I was 22, Julian Colby put me in that chair, and people hated it, and they're like, he doesn't know anything, and blah blah blah. But I learned, and they learned, and Colby just wound up telling me everything about how to run a station, and here I am doing just the Colby plan. But thought following circumstances that you have to let youth go, and then
I agree.
that's the thought, and the circumstance follows. You can't control it always.
Well, let me give you a personal example of that. Uh, had this agency I built over a 30-some year period.
And sold for a bunch of money.
Well, and then my son called me one day and said, would you mind if I came back and worked with you after spending a year out of college working for a hedge fund in Denver? And I said, sure, I'd love to have you come back. We can talk about it. So he came back, went to work with me. And then it got to a point where he was doing really well. He understood the business, and I felt comfortable because I was reaching, 60, 65, somewhere in that range. And I said, do you have any interest in buying the agency? And he said, I do. I really do. And I said to him, well, I have 2 requirements I have. One of them is you have to come to me. You have to give me a business plan. Number 2, that business plan does not need to follow what I've done for the last 35 years. I recognize the fact we're different people. We operate and have different goals. If you're going to succeed, your thought is you've got to go this way. My happiness came from taking this path, but I'm willing to give you the freedom to change it to yours if you want to. So had that discussion never happened, and we then got together with the Myers family, and then with the intermediate buyer, and then ultimately with our big buyer, it was Matt and Jeff, the younger people, that Larry and I gave the freedom to follow their dream that enabled us to actually have 2 buyouts rather than 1.
So in my example and your example, circumstance followed thought. But at some point, you had to let go of control.
Yep.
And like today, do you have any idea what it was like for me to not listen and text you what to say next and all that? I just checked out. Frankly, Scarlett,
Just go to breakfast.
Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn, right? Right? And you know what?
Look at that smile. That really, she likes that one.
Nobody texted me complaining about you today. Nobody. I couldn't believe that. So you must have really, overcame something today and had a major milestone. But circumstance followed thought in both of those situations. You had competent younger person making competent decisions and whatever. It's their decision. Let's see what happens. But you had the forethought to allow that to happen. And this is the one part of James Allen's thought and your thought that I can follow. And so I'm projecting that other people that aren't necessarily into the PMA movement and that kind of stuff, that they can follow too.
Yeah, I think anybody can. We've put fancy names on it, but all of it has been around for years. It's just the people who decide to find the appropriate attack point and to utilize what they have available to them to succeed at anything, whether or not it's relationships with other people or it's business or it's sports. It really does all come from up here. Yes, it helps if you love what you do and you're going to do those things that make you happy, and everybody should strive for that. If they can, it makes it a whole lot easier. And I think that's what has made my life so enjoyable, is the fact that I found something I love to do, the insurance business, and I found secondary things like positive thinking and motivation that we've been able to help other people with. So each person follows their own path. Just believe it can happen to you. It isn't just the other guy like Jim Didolo or Will Glarus or whoever. If you look at them as successful, do it your way. If you do, it'll be much easier.
This was recorded the day before Halloween of 2025, and it is called the Limbwalkers podcast. It's actually a Limbwalkers Jedcast because it is a podcast recorded live on the radio. And thank you, Will. Like always, we'll do it again
Jim. You bet.
very soon. Until next time, we'll see you later.